Hey there, my name is Dan. Thank you for joining me. And today I am going to talk about how to leave a hiking itinerary for your emergency contact back home. Now, this is an issue that I feel super strongly about because nothing makes me cringe more than when I hear someone say that they do not tell anyone where they're going or for how long. Or they do tell someone, but all they say is, going to Yellowstone for a couple days. See ya. Yeah, not a good idea. So I thought I would show you an example of a typical itinerary that I leave for my contact and go through step by step things that I like to include. But first of all, why is it important to leave a hiking itinerary? Especially if you have something like this, a satellite messenger that you can communicate with the outside world and even send an SOS if you're in trouble. Well, simply put, technology can fail. You can lose this, the battery can die, you can drop it on a rock, or maybe you just can't get messages out. And in that case, your emergency contact can literally save your life. Okay, so the example I'm showing you is from my 4-day trip to Dolly Sods last August. And I'm going to go through step by step everything that I leave on the itinerary and why. So the very first thing that you'll notice, in big, bold, red, underlined letters, the time to hear from me. Now this is the absolute last moment that my emergency contact should hear from me. So not 4:59, not 5:01, 5 p.m. by this date. If they do not hear from me by this time, then call in the cavalry. And this is not necessarily when I'm going to be back home from the trail, but just when I anticipate that I will be within cell phone signal again, and so I can send out a text or give the person a call to let them know that I'm finished with my hike. Now I will say that actually having a satellite messenger such as the InReach Mini complicates this a bit, because I do typically send out check-in messages when I'm on the trail using this thing. And so what happens if I don't send out a check-in message by a certain time? Now what I typically do is I will send a message when I first start my hike at the parking lot, and I will send out a check-in message at least once throughout the day, as well as a message when I get to my campsite. But again, what happens if I'm just not able to send out a message? Again, technology can fail. This thing can break, I could lose battery power, or I just might not be able to get a signal out. Maybe I'm in super dense forest the entire time with a lot of cloud cover overhead. Those things can happen. And while you definitely want your emergency contact to contact the authorities if you do need help out on the trail, at the same time, you don't want them to contact them for absolutely no good reason, especially just because your satellite messenger is not working. Because after all, that is time that they could be spending helping somebody else and devoting more resources to somebody else that actually might need help on the trail. So what I like to do, I include this in my itinerary, and I just specify a specific time period that if you do not hear from me via the satellite messenger by this time, then call first responders. Now, this is really kind of fluid. I mean, it's not a hard and fast rule how much time you should put down for that. But what I do is I say, if it has been more than 24 hours since my last check-in message, then call for help. Now, I typically only do that if I'm going on a 3-day or more trip. If it's just a 2-day trip, then, I'm only going to be really gone, 24 to 36 hours anyway from the last time I talked to my contact. So that doesn't really matter all that much. But on longer trips, I do like to just say 24 hours, you haven't heard from me, then contact somebody. The most likely scenario that's going to happen with this is that I just can't get messages out. Honestly, I'm not very likely to lose this thing. I keep it close by me all the time. I'm also not very likely to break it. I'm probably not gonna drop it on a rock. And battery power too, I always bring an external battery with me if I think that I'm going to be losing battery power. So the most common thing is that I'm just not able to get a message out temporarily. So within a 24-hour time span, as long as I have this on me still, I should be able to get out at least one message within 24 hours. But again, that's just what I do. What you want to do might be totally different. You could say 36 hours, 48 hours, or not even specify that at all. But the important thing is that whatever you choose, you just communicate that to your contact. All right, moving on. So the next thing that I put down on the itinerary is exactly where I'm going to be going. I also like to put down the ranger district and even the phone number for the ranger, if applicable. Now, I always recommend that if your contact needs to call first responders, they just dial 911. Don't bother going through the ranger station or through the national forest, national park, or wherever it is that you're hiking. Just call 911. Even though it's going to go to your local dispatcher, they will still put you in touch with the correct first responders. So just dial 911. Next, I like to leave a couple bullet points of extra information. So I mentioned that I have the trail map attached. I always send this out in an email, so my contact has that right in their email. So I always attach a trail map, and we'll take a look at that as well. I also detail again how often I will be sending check-in messages through my satellite messenger. And then I say see below for my hiking itinerary. And this is a very important point in my opinion. So I always detail exactly what I plan to be doing hiking-wise. So you see that I have all of my directions on exactly what trails I'm going to be doing. And to show you the map, all of those numbers correspond to numbered trails. So my contact can take a look at the map and see exactly what route I plan to be doing. Now you can also just draw something on the map itself if that's easier for you. I chose to do it detailing it in bullet points on a separate sheet only because my particular route for this trip, I'm kind of going all over the place, and sometimes I'm going back on the same trail that I already did but in the opposite direction. So actually drawing it out on this map would just be really confusing. So I detailed it on an extra sheet. And on the map, you'll notice that I have where I'm going to be parking, as well as where I plan to be camping for each of my nights. And I also include GPS coordinates for all these locations as well, just so my contact knows exactly where I plan to be camping. Now you can get these GPS coordinates in one of two pretty easy ways. The first one is to use caltopo.com. If you have not used this before, then man, oh man, are you in for a treat. It is an awesome free online mapping software. So all you have to do is find on the map where you plan to be camping, then right-click on it, and then go to Point Info, and then Position and Elevation, and it will tell you right then and there exactly what GPS coordinates are at that point. Alternatively, if you don't want to mess with that, you can also get them through Google Maps. If you find out on Google Maps approximately where your campsite's going to be, just right-click on that location, click on what's here, and then it will give you the GPS coordinates. All right, so another thing that I'm going to mention about the hiking itinerary is it is a good idea to stick to your itinerary as much as possible so that your contact always knows where you're going to be on the trail on any given day. Now, of course, this isn't always possible. Sometimes you do need to alternate your plans. But if you do know that there might be some issues with your plan ahead of time, mark that down on your itinerary so that your contact knows. So for example, if you are hiking down a trail and you know that there's a really big creek crossing and it might be impassable depending on the water level, then note that down along with an alternate route of where you might be going. Otherwise, sometimes you just have to modify your plans while you're out on the hike. I did that a lot actually when I was in Dali Sods, but I still ended up sticking more or less to my intended route. I just didn't do as much of it. And since I did have a satellite messenger, I was able to communicate that back to my contact to let her know exactly what I was going to be doing. I also included a couple other things on each day, like the miles I'm going to be doing for each day, as well as the elevation gain and loss. And that's just to give my contact a general idea of how difficult each day is going to be for me when I'm on the trail. The elevation gain and loss is probably a little bit of overkill, but I had it anyway, so I just threw it in there. Well, that's pretty much it as far as the itinerary is concerned. I will say as well that there is no such thing as too much detail. Just make sure that you have as much detail in your trip plan as possible, but make it formatted nice and clear so that your contact can see all the relevant points on your plan. And the last thing I want to mention, speaking of your contact, is make sure that you choose an emergency contact that you trust. My emergency contact when I'm going on my solo trips is my wife. And I trust my wife because she is also a hiker, so she knows what types of challenges I'm going to be experiencing on the trail. So pick someone that you trust in that regard, but also pick someone that you trust to not freak out when and if they actually need to call first responders and communicate with them. If your contact is going to get super duper stressed if and when they need to help you, probably not a good person to pick. And also, obviously, make sure that your contact will be available when you're out on the trail and that they're not going off on some vacation or they're going to be out of cell phone range the entire time. They need to be available if and when, again, they need to help you. All right, if there's anything else that you all include in your hiking plans, let us know in the comments. And if you like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Stick around just a little longer for a couple of bloopers. And thank you so much for watching. And of course, when you're out there on the trail, have fun out there. And be safe! You can jump. Jump, lunchbox. Jump! Or not. It's so important to leave. There you go.